Welcome to the True Elegance podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bumia Kikube, also known as Dr. B. Through solo episodes and guest sessions, we delve into the timeless qualities of style, grace, and sophistication and uncover what makes you truly elegant. So, sit back, relax, and let's get started on this empowering journey of becoming truly elegant.
I sometimes think that women can do both. Like we can be elegant, we can be poised and still be, I don't like to use that word, but girl bosses like in
Yeah.
our fields. I think we can do both.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think sometimes when people think about the work that we do, which is very important and sometimes can be underappreciated.
Right.
um People automatically think of, and I kid you not, someone told me that, like, someone in sweatpants, someone who just doesn't have the time to take care of themselves because they're too busy
Ah,
taking care of the world, taking care of other communities. But that's not the case. I mean, obviously, we among many other women don't fit that criteria. And
right.
so I don't know. I think it's a bigger discussion on people trying to see beyond what they see or beyond what's being presented to them on social
Mhm.
media on what
Mhm.
a public health worker looks like.
Right, right. And that's why people like you and me, have to step up and and show up and share the other side of public health because yeah, most likely tomorrow you're gonna see me in my ODUs or my uniform with my hair pulled back and probably not as fancy face as this. But I bring, my character, my values, my strengths into my work every day. And it's that really makes me able to do what I do, whether I look pretty or not.
Yeah, and I wonder too, like even when you said if you look pretty or not, do you believe that because to me, beauty to me is not just external beauty.
Right.
It's also includes the internal beauty. And
Mhm.
also I think from someone who's coming from because I'm a believer, I think from a
Yes.
believer's perspective, I think we're all beautiful in God's
Yes.
eyes.
Yes.
I guess like as soon as you said that, I kept thinking, what along the way, what gets in the way along our journey who
Mm.
that makes us question, that we need to do certain things to be beautiful.
Right.
Like,
Right.
where do those seeds start to be planted? Is it
Mhm.
through our families? Is it
Yeah.
in our culture? Like,
Mm.
what's influencing our behavior instead of us influencing it? Like, what is
Mhm.
that it factor?
Yeah, I think it's so much pressure from the society because especially with social media, there is an ideal thing that maybe a woman in her 20s, 30s, or 40s should look like, and everybody
Mhm.
tries to model themselves like that person. And yeah, that might have been a slip of tongue when I said beautiful or not, because that's the main essence of this podcast, that beyond the
Mhm.
physical features, which like you said, I'm a believer too. And I believe that God created each and every one of us uniquely. Like
True.
there is no point trying to be like the other person because then you're hiding all the beauty and all the glory and all the special things that God has put inside of you. So when we embrace that and own who we are, become more confident in who we are, then we know that okay, it's not a matter of whether I'm made up or not. I think that's the right word to use, like makeup or
Yeah.
fancy dress. Like you mentioned, if you're in your scrubs and you're making an impact and you're fulfilling purpose, that right there is true elegance because you're
Yeah.
embracing your uniqueness, you're developing it along the way because we don't just get it all fixed in 1 year or one time. We learn, we improve, and we get better.
That is true. No, and that continuous learning is so critically important because that's what keeps us not just credible, but also makes us, continues to ensures that we stay relevant,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Just because sometimes I think, and this is me speaking from I don't want to be confined to a box that I'm a millennial, but I think from like an older millennial perspective, um, I think sometimes we can put ourselves in certain boxes,
Hmm.
try to fit in, trying to reach, standards that we have not set for ourselves, but it's the
Hmm.
standards that's been kind of like passed down, again, from a cultural perspective, because I'm from the Caribbean. I was born in the States, but I grew up in the Caribbean. Um, or if it's our own, if we're looking at our own standards, now you have to start questioning, like, where is this coming from? Is this coming from my own experiences, or is this being influenced by someone else's ideal of where I should be, what I
Right.
should be thinking, what I should be looking like? And you're right. I mean, I'm a consumer of social media, but the right way for my business,
Uh-huh.
and then also like just working in the field of public health.
Right.
But it doesn't tell the full story, because sometimes you can see someone smiling in a picture and they may be in a domestic violent situation.
So true.
And so I think that's the reason why, and I'm so glad that again, from the conversation we're having, I'm hearing improvement, I'm hearing growth, I'm hearing this idea of continuous learning.
Journey.
I
Right.
think we always have to continuously learn, to see beyond what is presented in front of us, because it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't always tell us everything we need to know. And even if you eventually get the data, or you collect data to sort
Mm.
of add to your pre-existing, I don't know, thoughts or assumptions,
Okay.
whether you want to confirm it or not, um, people can choose not to tell you.
Hmm.
They can choose to just tell you what you want to hear, and not
Mhm.
necessarily what you need to hear about that story to really get to the root cause of the issue.
That is so true. And I couldn't agree more. And, it also speaks to how we're a sister's keeper or a brother's keeper, like they usually say. Because,
Mm,
like you said, the fact that I'm smiling and like I look like I have everything all together, for some people, it might not be the true situation. And I've encountered that so many times on social media. And that's why it's so important to have a circle of trust, even if it's just one person
mm,
who can look beyond the facades that you're putting out there to say, hey, Boomy, are you really okay? Do we need to talk? Do you want to take a break from all this pressure you're putting on yourself to
right.
really sit back and, get back to yourself
Mm,
beyond just showing up for social media or showing up for other people all the time till it now leads to a
mm.
big crash and burnout.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, even I think about my experience, as I was trying to understand myself as a woman in the bigger realm of our society. um there was a point in time where I thought that I needed, to look a certain way, and I did play into that for a while, until like I realized I wasn't happy. It actually made me more depressed. And
Wow.
I think that's when I had to say to myself that I need to adopt this attitude, like most people who are more worldly, who are
Mm.
um not to really, I mean, again, I care about presentation for sure. Because again, based on my culture and based on how I was raised. And at the same time, I always look at people's definition of what presentable looks like. My definition of it may not look like someone else's.
Right.
For me, it may just be, looking very presentable and then having bare face without the makeup. But for someone else,
Mhm.
it might be that.
Right.
Um, and that's okay, as long
Mhm.
as the person is happy, with themselves, and understand why they doing this, right? What
Right.
is the, because there's always, I think, like a purpose behind every action that you take.
Yes.
And so absolutely, I agree. Um, so yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I would say.
Wow. I love it. I like how we just like dived into the conversation. All right, now I'm just thinking of when we release the episode, it's gonna be like, okay, have they started? Have they not started? But yes, we have started, and
We have.
that is all about what being authentic is all about because
Yes.
we don't have to script everything and wait till everything is perfect to have a heart-to-heart conversation, which we've
Absolutely.
had so far. So thank you for diving right in. But for the sake of the audience, so that they can enjoy your services and know who you are, I'm gonna give you a few minutes to do a brief introduction, like who's
Absolutely.
this amazing lady on my screen, and how did you come to these conversations that we've picked up already? Because I'm sure there was a time when you were playing and dancing to all this tune, and then you came to a point and you were like, you know what, is it really worth it? So let's hear that story.
Absolutely. So my journey started when I grew up in Haiti because my family's from Haiti, France, and Martinique. And I spent the majority of my formative years in the country.
Okay.
And I think that living in the country shaped not only my character, but my strong sense of self.
Hmm.
And I also think that living around poverty, I wasn't poor myself. I didn't grow up in poverty, but living around it um definitely fostered this obligation,
Hmm.
to do something that's going to make an impact on people's lives and ensure that they have equal access to all of the amenities and the commodities that I have enjoyed or that I have benefited from,
Hmm.
all of my life.
Okay.
um and so I think like that's the reason why I decided, maybe, initially I thought that, hey, becoming a doctor, specifically a physician, I wanted to become a pediatrician. And I said, okay, well, maybe this is going to be part of my calling, to work with children. And maybe that's the way that I would make an impact. And then when I came back to the States, because at a certain point I was raising myself at the age of 12 because of the civil unrest in Haiti.
Hmm.
So when I came back in the early 2000s in the States, I was living with a host family, practically raising myself.
Wow.
And then things sort of changed. My career trajectory definitely changed. I still wanted to be a pediatrician, but to be honest with you, at the time, I didn't really understand why. And I was not, exposed to the concept of understanding your mission, understanding your vision. I think if
Right.
nothing else, as a Catholic, as a Roman Catholic, you go through these series of rituals. But again, the relationship with God is much deeper than a ritual.
Right.
And at the age of 12, until my early teenage years, I was still finding myself. I didn't really know God the way I know God today.
Wow.
And so, I was lost. I was like a lost lamb. Or should I say, I was functional. I had all my faculties in place, but I really didn't know what I was going to do in my life. All I knew is that I wanted to be a pediatrician. I just stuck with that plan. So when I got to college, when I arrived in college, um, because I started college at the age of 16, I was thrown into this world, right, with people who are much older than me.
Yeah.
And then trying to still understand, I had already left, this host family, trying to figure things out in a world of adults. And I
Hmm.
still did not have a sense of agency over myself, no matter how mature I was. And so my journey took me from taking classes, taking biological science classes, to transitioning to public health, because what I was trying to do is really focus on population health and not necessarily case management, just focusing on one patient at a time. So
Hmm.
obviously the initial mission I had with where I landed were just not, it was clear was not aligned. I was still in the health field, but what I was trying to do was not aligned with being a pediatrician. It was more aligned with doing work in public health.
Okay.
And so that's how I stumbled on public health during my sophomore year. And in between then, I decided to go and study in Europe. So I lived there for almost a year. I have family there, but again, those are distant family members. So I just went and landed like not an internship, but like a study abroad fellowship, if you will, like in Spain. So I lived there for almost a year.
Oh, okay.
And then while I was in Spain, I knew I had heard something about, if I joined the Peace Corps, it would allow me to use my skill sets. And I am a multilinguist. I speak more than 3 languages.
Oh, wow.
And then I was working or taking courses in public health. I had already started sort of like the start of my career working in public health in at Harvard, the Harvard School of Public Health,
Oh,
landed in internships with medical legal partnerships. So some of these companies. So I was like getting my foot in the door, and
okay.
so that's when I started my application for the Peace Corps while I was abroad. And when I came back, I attended this event where I spoke to someone who had just returned back from her, I believe, from her service in Botswana. And
Okay.
then something told me, you know what? Maybe this is the next step that I need to take. And it's funny how the universe works. The universe always conspires to help us get to where we need to be. I just had a good feeling about it. I said, you know what? I'm going to apply. So once I applied, it took about a year, I believe, for me to hear back. And so by March of 2020, well, no, not 2020, 2012 or 2011, because I graduated in 2011.
Okay.
By March 2012, I was already in Senegal, West Africa. Um, I was beginning my career literally. I didn't know that back then, but this would be the start of me really understanding where I fit in the public health realm.
Wow.
And so in Senegal, West Africa, I lived in a rural community with no running water, no electricity.
Hmm.
Speaking about fashion and style, if you will,
That was like
there was none
that
of that
was
happening. Okay.
non-existent. It's
There was none of
survival.
that.
Survival.
I was on survival mode day in and day out. I still keep in touch with my host family, by the way,
Oh,
and the
that's
people I've worked
beautiful.
with there. And so that's how I stumbled on public health in terms of my business and for Pathway Coach Writing. I think it was sort of like one of these life's mission that was sort of lagging behind because when I
Okay.
was in college, people would ask me to provide content feedback. I didn't really take it seriously at the time. I did it because I love to read. I'm an avid reader. I read at least more than 5 books a month.
Hmm.
Um, and I said, you know what, I'm going to be of service to others. I'm going to help them out. And maybe along the way, I'm going to learn something from it.
Wow.
Until one of my friends I think was working on a white paper. And then she asked me what my thoughts were. And when I gave her some feedback on her content, she implemented the changes. And I think she received a promotion.
Wow.
Again, I don't want to put I don't want to say that she got a promotion because of this white paper because she's a hard worker. I'm sure like there are other deliverables, but again, people were very impressed with the white paper.
That's
And then
awesome.
she went on to ask me, she said, Venchele, I think that you should create a business out of this
Hmm.
because you clearly have a gift, for writing.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, after, getting some clients kind of by referrals, before I just decided to create a website. And that was
Okay.
right before the pandemic.
Wow.
And that's how Pathway Coach Writing was born.
Hmm.
And then also like a side note, what people don't know is that Pathway Coach Writing was born because I also wanted to make sure that people were underrepresented in the writing and editing industry to be, for their narratives to sort of be amplified,
Mm-hmm.
and to shine through,
Yeah.
in the industry as well. So when we're talking
Beautiful.
about people who are underrepresented, we're not just talking about people of color, but
Hmm.
also people with disabilities, people
Okay.
who struggle with mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make sure that I create a platform or at least to be part of the movement where they know that there are people who are vouching for them. But I work with
Beautiful.
all clients from all walks of life.
Awesome.
Um, and that's how I found
Wow.
both of my mission in public health and
Writing. That is so beautiful. Thank you, Vanchelle, for sharing your journey. That is so heartwarming on many levels. And I'm originally from Nigeria, so I know how some parts of Africa could be. And I've had a lot of stories about Peace Corps. I have Peace Corps colleagues at work who
mm,
basically, yeah, like you said, got dropped off the bus and had to figure things out. But most of them, just like you, ended up loving the community so much and making so much impact. And like you said, they're still in touch with their host families and many friends and colleagues they've made out there. So I believe that is a unique path to also finding your purpose, which you have followed to some extent. And
yes.
it has evolved into what you're doing now, making an impact in public health, getting your doctorate degree, and now incorporating all those skills into writing and helping
Absolutely.
folks to write, representing the underrepresented in those circles. That is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you
Beautiful.
so much.
So I want to pick on a few things. Like when we initially connected, you talked about going through some challenges and
Mm,
defining your why at the intersection of mental health and personal development and growth. I know you have shared some of that already in your Peace
yes.
Corps journey, but is there any other aspects where that really jumped out to you?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway when you are in a desert season, because right now I do feel like I am in a desert season. And what that looks like is that it almost feels like nothing is really moving, but everything is happening beneath the surface. You just can't see
Exactly.
it. You know, the seeds that you planted in the former season are kind of sprouting. And I think the biggest takeaway I would give to people who are trying to understand or define their why is that, you know, is not to jump into conclusions, not to make rash decisions during that season. And most importantly, understand that everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for you and not against you. And
Yeah.
that's something that I've had to learn, like, you know, along the way as I was growing up. And even when my parents, you know, based on their upbringing and based on what they've taught me, is really to be kind to yourself. It's also really not taking people for granted, not taking relationships for granted, and understanding that in each interaction there is something to learn about yourself and the other person who's in front of you. um and in a desert season, definitely when we talk about mental health, I mean, you know, being a Peace Corps volunteer has its challenges. It's not all rosy. I definitely, again, I know for me, the challenge for me was navigating in a culture that was drastically different from what I've known, you know, as a
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean woman and also
Mm-hmm.
as an American.
Yeah.
Um, and that was tough, you know, because again, in some countries women are not given the same liberties that we have.
Right.
You know, when people say they talk about boundaries, they talk about no being a full sentence, sometimes I chuckle because I'm thinking, but there's some women out there who don't have the luxury to say no.
True.
What is funny to you may be a death sentence to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like, and again, that's why I don't take anything for granted. I can say no, but there's a woman out there who cannot, because if they say no, their financial livelihood is over.
Right.
And so I think as public health professionals, but most importantly as fellow human beings, we always gotta, we cannot project ourselves onto other people or project our situations onto other people, because um the other person may not have those that luxury, they may not have like that freedom.
Right.
to do what you and I are doing right now.
Hmm.
I'm sure there are many children, even like in Haiti or even in Nigeria, who want to come here
Mm-hmm.
and go to school. But
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, given like what life has hindered to them,
Right.
it's hard. They will make it, but it's hard to get to that end destination, whatever that end destination is.
Mm. Yes, so
So
that is
that's something
so
that keeps
true.
me up at night. That's something that I
Okay.
think about.
Wow. I see your passion coming through right there. And that's awesome. But thank you for reminding us those major things, sometimes when it seems like we're in a desert season, it's the seeds that are under the ground that are gradually sprouting. And
Mm,
if we don't give up and just, dig it up again or mess up the entire area, it will definitely sprout. And, just like we talked about at the beginning, it's a journey that keeps going and improving. So we have to be patient with ourselves and trust the process. And of course, trust God that every
mm,
plan and purpose He has for us is unfolding. And like you
that
said, no
part.
time is wasted. No season is wasted. No experience is wasted. Sometimes it's not all good experiences, but we can learn from the bad ones as well
Mm,
and
yeah,
find the beauty that is coming out of it. And I like
absolutely.
what you said also about, yeah, we've said that being kind to ourselves and not taking other people for granted, because
No,
there's so many privileges we enjoy that
mm,
other people might not.
they might not have it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
you know.
Thanks for sharing that. Hmm. Wow. So as we wrap up today, I want you to talk a little bit more about your writing. You
Yes.
also mentioned that writing helps you, to connect with God, connect with His purpose and His plan. How has that journey been for you?
I think that journey has been progressing. I mean, there have been times where just like any other human being, like you become frustrated with the wait. But then again, I prefer to wait and then get something that's really mine to keep than not wait and rush into something and then it's taken away from me. So there's a lot
Wow.
of growth
Wow.
that is going on when you journal because you're able to see your thoughts on paper.
Hmm.
You have something to react to, if you will. Just like you read
Okay.
in a book, you have something to react to. And I know for me, I've gone through the ebb and flow. I am a firm proponent that writing is definitely a tool that can be used for meditation, that can be used to know God.
Hmm.
Because I don't believe that God only speaks to us through prayer. I mean, there's so many avenues because what's the point of saying that God is omnipresent if he's only going to use one channel? I think that he uses various channels. For
Right.
some people, he talks to them through dreams. For
Mm-hmm.
some people, it could be me meeting someone today and having that one conversation that changes the course of my life. And I
Right.
never see that person again. But to me, I call these people angels, people that I had to meet in this specific place at this specific time who had a specific message for me,
Hmm.
for me to like take the next step. And so my journey with writing and communing with God in that way has been evolving for sure. And I think at this point, when I talk about the desert season, when I talk about the mission, um, it's really communicating with him and asking him questions, that the burning questions I have,
Hmm.
um, while understanding that he may not give me a ready answer right now. It may be further down the road. But it's the purpose of writing is not to expect a quick answer, but it's knowing and having faith for the things not yet seen,
Wow.
and for understanding that in due time you will reap that harvest. And so that's where I'm at. I am firmly holding on to hope, knowing that everything is under control. Everything will pan out the way that it needs to,
Mhm.
beyond everything I'm doing right now.
Yes, yes. Wow.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful and heartwarming and inspiring altogether. Thank you. I feel it in my heart, and I think every one of us needs that message. So, thank you for being the channel to share that message with us today.
Absolutely.
Um, I really appreciate you being on the True Elegance podcast. And before we go, I just want you to share with our audience how we can stay connected with you. I know you've mentioned a few services you offer, but if you just want to state it clearly again so that those who have connected with you heart to heart already today can know where to find you.
Absolutely. So everyone can find me on all social media channels, including LinkedIn. I stay on LinkedIn. So please, if you
Okay.
are in the area, please connect with me on LinkedIn and Instagram. In terms of my services, I provide a range. One of the newest services that I'm providing right now is helping authors and businesses once they publish their book or whatever written content that they have, get booked on podcast. And so that's one of the newest services that I have. And again, I review and provide content feedback on all different written material. You know, for some services or some businesses, they will say to you, I only focus on nonfiction. I have had worked on several different projects, nonfiction,
Okay.
fiction, novels, memoirs, and then also provide feedback on content for websites.
Okay.
And I provide professional editing as well, and even AI content. So,
Oh, okay.
so
Nice.
that's a little bit about my services, and people can learn more about these services on my website, which I've shared with you.
Beautiful. We'll be sure to include that in our show notes.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the episode today and being a true elegance guest. We'll definitely be in touch, and best wishes. Be sure to subscribe so you'll be the first to be notified of every new episode. Leave a review and share this podcast with that elegant lady in your life. This is a space where we can come together to empower and inspire each other and live feeling elevated and enlightened. See you in the next episode.